being plotted.
Dr. Pieczenik, I want you to have the floor pretty much for the whole hour. I did my long 10-minute intro. You're basically up in the government, the CFR, and high level. You were a whistleblower. But first, specifically on 9/11, I mean, you've talked about being in there with the generals and CFR people where they pretty much just admit, yeah, it's inside job. And then you have debates with them. We have the Rumsfeld tape where he's with the generals. They say, sir, we need another attack. We sure need it. And he goes, yeah, we kind of do need another one, don't we? I mean, how many people in the ruling establishment know what really happened? Where do you expect this to go? In a few minutes on, from your best intel, exactly what happened on 9/11.
What actually happened on 9/11, even before 9/11, I wasn't just a whistleblower. I was literally the opposition that existed within the group who helped Bush Jr. get into power. One of the conditions I said is that there should be no acts against this country. And I could smell it because Bush, who's pretty dumb, and so is his entourage, was talking about peace overseas, yet the people he put in were neocons who had never served our country, who already were creating the American initiative in the Middle East, people like Zalmay Khalilzad, Paul Wolfowitz, and others. So within a year before the time when he came to power, as I was asked to come into the Pentagon, to the Office of Low-Intensity Conflict, I began to see the CIA civilians totally take over the Pentagon. It was an amazing feat. And I went to one of the senior officials who was a civilian, as well as another general, and said, you are now being infiltrated by the CIA. You are going to be involved in some kind of dirty trick, which I suspect will be a stand down and a false flag.
I could see the pre-programming, just to interrupt. They were on the news going, we're going to be attacked. When we're attacked, we're going to take your rights. I saw the Hart-Rubin Commission a year before say that. I saw the PNAC document about a Pearl Harbor event so they could take over. I mean, you saw the telegraphing, but from the inside. Please continue.
So it was clear to me who would be involved. It would be Paul Wolfowitz. It would be Walter Yako. It would be Zalmay Khalilzad. All of these people whom I'd worked with, Richard Pearl, Dov Zugheim, who's a rabbi I didn't know, but I didn't like, Elliot Abrams, who I almost killed in another iteration. He knew I was going after him on the Panama thing. And when it occurred, I knew immediately that this was a stand-down false flag because Israeli operatives immediately called me up and said the planes had attacked the towers and they were collapsing. And I said, there's no precedence in the history of any building where a plane has crashed and collapsed the building. And immediately they said, within minutes of the time, I said, this is a false flag. Oh, you must be an Arabist. And I said, now I know who's involved. I knew the Pakistani senior intelligence officer was coming here because I was forewarned by one of his predecessors, Yaqub Khan, that the Pakistani generals were involved in a potential coup. I was forewarned that the Saudis would be involved.
Steve Pieczenik,
both on the Republican and Democratic side.
Sure. So, Steve Pieczenik, we got to go to break. StevePieczenik.com. Folks, you're hearing it from somebody inside the system. He's going to tell you, okay, and just let the chips fall where they may, because it's all going to come out anyways. Pieczenik, I mean, you're uniquely able to speak to this, and so I know I'm running on about this. I just want listeners to understand the epicness that we're all involved in, them included. This is a real war. This is 21st century warfare, the attempted takedown of the West, because the elite is so threatened by Renaissance. How do we stop it? What happened on 9/11? And yes, what is the Israeli connection, and where do you see this going forward?
Well, let me just go on to say, a lot of what's happened is that our internal military system, our internal intelligence, those in the White House and other places have been very effective in political warfare, economic warfare, in turning the entire geopolitical area away from Saudi Arabia, which was our major creator of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all the Sunni terrorist groups at the inspiration of the CIA. However, there are elements of the CIA that fought it. No institution that we have is monolithic. No institution is all bad or all great. Within our intelligence system, and I've worked extensively, I have the good, the bad, and the ugly. And very often I'm working against my own people with other sorts of people. So I've had generals, and I won't name who they are, who worked with me in order to explain to people like Rumsfeld that if you continue to remain here and sacrifice 75,000 of our soldiers in a war that was from the very beginning poorly planned out, it had no success capability and was planned out by neocons like Wolfowitz and others who had no experience in war, we will overthrow you. When that happened, on that day, I was informed by Jeb Bush and his people that I was brought up on charges of treason. I won't tell you which generals worked with me. But had it not been for those generals and the people within the core of our military and our intelligence community, you would not have gotten rid of Rumsfeld, a disastrous individual.
This is too sensational. I may have to go into the next hour, because, sir, just so people understand, I remember over the years you hinting at this, you getting at it, and then what you said 4 years ago, and then it came out that Dempsey did go and say we're not going to bomb Syria. There's basically been a counter coup. The media hasn't reported it, and finally Cy Hirsch did. This is so epic. But that's what I'm saying. You've got all the secrets. They're dangerous for you to know.
That's why I want to say to you, the generals that I can talk about are generals like Jerry Boykin, Special Forces, General Schumacher, head of Special Forces. These weren't men who worked against our government. They're the men and heroes who worked with the American people, Keith Alexander. I mean, there's a whole group of them, even David Petraeus, when we put him into the CIA to control it. All these men, Michael Flynn, all these men were dedicated to the American people, knowing fully well that we could no longer have civilians who had no military experience, had no war experience, despite whatever they were in background, religion, it really didn't matter. What mattered was that they wanted to go to war without the notion that our military was not willing or capable of fighting a war that was limited in size, 75,000, as opposed to what Shinseki had ordered, 250,000, and our military was overturned by incompetent civilians. That changed. And that
but since then, they've had a major culling of the generals. So what's the real battle space now?
The culling of the generals is we've had now, that's going to continue until we get to the captain and the 04 level, 05 level.
So you're saying that's actually a good thing?
No, well, I think some of it is good and some of it is bad. Many people have argued against General Dempsey. I don't think General Dempsey, Martin Dempsey, has gotten his full reward for what he really did. He stopped our involvement in Syria. It would have been catastrophic had we gotten into a civil war in Syria.
He took the bold move to start giving the Russians intelligence outside of the neocons and the CIA trying to run an al-Qaeda takeover. I mean, do people get that? I mean, that is so epic. American military said, we're not going to do this, and quietly joined with Russia to stop the head choppers. That is so epic. 9/11 info coming out, like the string on the sweater.
That was a very important part of all of this.
And now Hillary, I mean, so I'm right in saying we're seeing a slow-motion collapse of the nastiest parts of the establishment.
Yes, correct, Alex. You're absolutely. We are all witnessing the collapse of what happened 9/11, but it did not happen just out of the blue. It happened because we had loyal military individuals, we had loyal intelligence officials, we had 16 different units of our intelligence community that really worked together, and we had people within the executive branch and the legislative branch, including senators, who were brave enough to say, we've had enough.
That's right. They're the heroes. They're the heroes, folks, and they were all there leaking the info the entire time.